Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this parent and family webinar today. My name is Peter Kwiatek, and I serve as the Assistant Dean of Community Engagement in the Office of the Dean of Students, and today I'll be moderating the webinar. This marks the first of what we do hope will become a regular series for families and parents. The topic today is transitions and belonging at Boston College. Before I go ahead and introduce our panelists, I wanted to mention that you can enter questions in the Q&A chat. As we go, we'll do our best to try to answer those as long as they kind of like naturally will come up in our conversation. Hopefully we'll cover all that material though anyways. So I'm joined today by three of the best colleagues from across campus. We have Chris Darcy. He's the director of the Office of First Year Experience. We have Caroline Davis. She's the Associate Dean of Student Outreach and Support Services and also works in the Office of the Dean of Students with me. And we have Ratha Kong, the Senior Director of Student Engagement and Formation, the former Director of the Office of Student Involvement. And once we kind of get going, I will put in folks' email addresses in the chat so that you can take it with you as you go and reach out to people if you have additional questions or things that come up later that you wanted to follow up on. So let's start by having the panelists tell us a little bit more about who they are and what their role is at BC. So let's start with Chris. Why don't you tell us about who you are and what you do here?
Great, Peter. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. So wonderful to be with you today. Chris Darcy, I serve as the director in the Office of First Year Experience, Boston College. We're part of the Division of University Mission and Ministry. I just started my 30th year at Boston College. I've worked previously in the Office of Residential Life, in the former Office of the Dean for Student Development, which is really kind of a combination now of the Dean of Students Office and the Office of Student Involvement. I spent some time in the Office of Campus Ministry, and now this is my third year in the Office of First Year Experience. So really, really happy and excited to be with all of you. I'm originally from Natick, Massachusetts, and welcome.
So you're in good hands with Chris. He has lots of experience at BC. Caroline, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your role here?
Hi, everyone. I'm Caroline Davis. I'm so happy to be here with you today. I have not been here 30 years, but I am in my 12th year here. And in my role in the Dean of Students Office, I oversee kind of a number of areas. So I oversee disability services, which provides disability-related accommodations. And then I oversee the university's student support system. So not like counseling and therapy, but really thinking about when we're worried about a student or when a student is struggling kind of with significant issues, then our team might meet with them or work with folks to help support students the best that we can. And so part of my role is really helping when kind of significant things happen that impact our community, to help support students, staff, and faculty, but also really to connect us as a community to make sure that our students are supported. So we're not going to talk about that today so much, but that is really a big piece of the work that I do is supporting students in a broad way and connecting folks to do that.
Thanks, Caroline. Thanks for sharing that. We'll turn to Ratha if you want to introduce yourself and share us with a little bit more about what you do here.
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. My name is Ratha Kong. I currently serve as Senior Director of the Engagement Information team. And there are kind of three bucket areas that I oversee. So student involvement being my most recent, Women's Center, and the Bowman Intercultural Center. Between the three different areas, engagement is a big component of what the student life experience is. It's very typical for students to get involved in student organizations or get involved in student government, as well as leadership programs and just different programming opportunities that happen on campus. So life outside the classroom is very robust here, and I can cover a little bit of that in this session.
Great. Thanks, Ratha. So my first question is really for everybody, and it's a very broad question. But if you can talk from your point of view, what does a typical transition of BC look like for most students? Caroline, let's start with you.
When I was thinking about this question, I think the thing that came to mind is like joyously bumpy. Transition is just a hard thing for all human brains and bodies. So new things are difficult, but also so joyous and fun. So I think, the challenge of meeting new people, figuring out where you're going, being in new classes for the first time, being away from kind of things that are familiar, doing maybe your own laundry for the first time. Some of those things bring some like challenge and emotional things, but also like so much fun and joy and being able to experience maybe a freedom of what is it that I want to do and how do I want to fill my time and being able to do that. So I think joyously bumpy feels like the right vibe for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Caroline. Let's go to Chris. What about for you?
I can't add too much to that. I really, really like that, Caroline. I think of courageous vulnerability. We really started orientation. A lot of you that have been at orientation the last few years, we talk about new companions on the journey in the Ignatian tradition. St. Ignatius, the founder of the Society of Jesus, had these early companions that he gathered. And really, we challenged the students to think about, from the orientation leader to the RA, to faculty, to academic advisors, to the people in the residence halls or roommates. There are new companions, being open to that. And that's hard. And we know that. And that's why I love what Caroline said. There's a bumpiness to that. But you have to go into your heart and have that courageous vulnerability to put yourself out there. Not, quote, starting over, but it's just a different part of the journey. So I think being open to new companions on the journey, and once you engage them, and once you kind of realize, hey, they're there for you, they're going to be part of your experience, I think that helps with that start of the transition.
Awesome. Thank you. And Rotha, what about from your perspective in student involvement type work?
My colleagues covered a lot of it, but I would say finding our bearings. A lot of our students come in with all these robust experiences and they want to mirror that right away, right? I want to be part of 5 organizations and I want to do these things. But a lot of it is finding a routine that works for you at first, right? Like, what does the academics look like? And then figuring out, am I working? Am I volunteering? And then what organizations do I want to get involved in? So I would say it's a big role in adapting to new routines, and then just figuring out who your peers are, who are your connection points, and then going from there.
Awesome. Thank you. So I want to kind of move into like transitions and adjustments, which is natural, whether you're a first year student, first time coming to college, a transfer student, or even an upper class student, because every semester, every year looks and feels a little different. Chris, in terms of the first year experience or transfer experience, how do you help students who may arrive at BC expecting like an immediate sense of belonging and connection, but are finding that, it's taking a little bit longer than anticipated?
Right. You mean that they're not going to find their best friends, the people that'll be in their weddings, the people that they're going to live with, the people that they're going to study abroad with, the people that they're going to, know afterwards in the first 2 weeks? You mean that question? Is that the one you're asking, Peter? Okay.
Yes.
Well, all of us have great experience with this. And it starts really, I think, with the orientation leader team, and then really blends into the residence halls and into the classroom. Being slow and steady, being diligent and being patient. You're not going to figure it out. I don't care what the university is that someone has applied to. We challenge the students all the time to look at the other schools they apply to. Whatever school, it is, and we're grateful that they're here. It takes time. It's going to take the better part of that first semester, really into that first year, to get to know the rhythm, the routine. What dining halls am I going to? Okay, what activities? I don't need to go to the student involvement fair and sign up for 15.5 different clubs and organizations. What we just need, just remind people just to be patient, that it's going to happen. And we know you all as families do a good job saying, hey, listen, you're going to find your people, find your spaces, find your involvements, find your classes, find those majors. We try to reaffirm that. It really starts at orientation with the amazing orientation leaders that we have, and really with all of our colleagues across the university, these colleagues here and all of our colleagues that we represent, just reminding them that, hey, we're excited you're here. Father Casey Beaumer, our Vice President of University Mission Ministries, says this, and he says, listen, you're supposed to be here. You're part of our community. So we try to gently remind people of that it's going to come together. You just have to be patient and be engaging.
Yeah, that actually resonates so much with me. I went to BC and I remember being a first year, student trying to find my people and realizing, it takes a little bit longer than anticipated. But not only do you eventually find them, you keep growing your circle throughout your time here. It never stops, So that's a really nice thing that it's not an immediate success sometimes that happens. So Ratha, in terms of like campus life, students getting here, wanting to get involved, how do you engage students? Some really want to dive in and sign up for everything, and some take a little bit longer to explore and find kind of like their path. So how do you kind of encourage them to find the right fit for them?
That's a great question, and it's going to look different for everyone. So my biggest advice is to be curious and try new things. Like, you don't know what you don't know. Our student involvement fair that happens at the beginning of every semester in the fall is a great place to go and shop around for organizations that honestly you probably wouldn't have known or explored if it wasn't in front of you or you weren't accessible to it right away. But beyond that, I think what works for each student is going to feel different in terms of the level of involvement. Back to what Chris was saying, or I encourage students to get involved in one or two things deeply, right? That's where you're going to make your lifelong friends and feel really connected to a community that accepts you and your identity and who you are as a person and your purpose and your passions and your interests. So, but that takes a little bit of finding, right? And I think that patience piece, that it works kind of in alignment with one another. Like, we're not going to get here on the first week and find our best friends right away. It's going to take some time to develop those relationships, but that curiosity is going to take you a long way.
Awesome. Thank you. And Caroline, so a big thing that impacts students at all levels, first years through seniors, is finding this balance between their academic workload and the unstructured time that they have in a college setting. So what advice or resources do you have for students in this area trying to figure that out?
I think this is a great question. Maybe all of us could answer for ourselves a little bit. And first, sometimes I do just push against the idea that there is like a perfect balance, right? So the way academia is structured is so particular, right? Where you go to class, you get kind of tested on what you've learned, or you're asked to demonstrate your learning for these like 15 weeks, and then those classes end and new ones, come up. So I think honoring that you have to learn how you learn and how you then study and use your time is part of that. I think that asking your student, and what I ask students is like, how do you know when you're on track, right? So what are the indicators to you that you're like kind of studying the right amount, having enough downtime, having enough social time? And often it is things like, well, I sleep, right? So I get enough sleep at night, or at least like mostly get enough sleep at night. I know where I study best. I know who my go-to people are to either be playing with or in student group with or studying with or eating meals with. But I think sometimes I also, when I find students are feeling really overwhelmed, I look at and think about, well, where are you kind of either misusing your time or wasting your time or spending too much time? So I've had students who are like, I realized I really overthought a paper and I spent a ton of time on it that I didn't need to. And so encouraging students to check in with their faculty, make sure that they're right-sizing their work. But also, how much scrolling are you doing on your phone? And is that kind of contributing to feeling like you have no time, but really you have time that you're just not using as well as you can? And I actually think there are a lot of resources on campus that can help with this. So the Connors Family Learning Center actually offers academic coaching, and this is part of what they would be talking about with students. And then the Center for Student Wellness has student peer coaches. And this is a big part of what they talk about. And a student can go and meet with them and just have a conversation that is like, so I can't figure out how to allocate all my time and I'm feeling overwhelmed. and as peers kind of have a deep understanding of the experience and can help students walk through how to problem solve that.
Yeah, I love that, because like so much of your start of college is not learning in the classroom, but also learning how to be a student, and figuring out what you need for studying and preparing for class and how to manage that time around it. And then leaning on older students that have done it before and can help you along the way and give you advice or coach you, which is great. So moving into parent support and communication, I think that for a lot of parents, they are considering like how much should they be checking in with their student versus how much space should they be giving their student when they arrive. Chris, can you speak to kind of what you see and kind of what you recommend in terms of like a balance between making sure you're, engaged with your student while they're at BC, but also allowing them to kind of go on their own a little bit more?
No, great. Thanks, Peter. It is a really important question. And it's a question that our team gets asked at orientation quite a bit as well, too. And, the university and our colleagues, we're not ever going to mandate to you saying, hey, don't reach out to your daughter or to your son. Don't email, don't call, No, you have to be comfortable with the relationship that you've built. Again, one of the things at orientation, at the end of orientation, we really thank all of you for trusting us with your most valued possession of your life. But we don't want to infringe on what you've set up. What we do is challenge and give students the space that they need. And my colleagues have all talked about this. Give them the space to kind of get comfortable those first few days. Very rarely do we have a situation, where, families will say, hey, can we stay after the August move-in, to the welcome events and things like that. That doesn't really happen anymore. Though I tell you, if we did put events together, I think a lot of family members would probably jump at that. But no, what we say is, give them some time and space to get comfortable and to be challenged. They're going to have to learn on their own to this point. The transition is real. There's a learning curve to that. We all recognize that. Starts in the classroom and certainly in the residence halls, to all the clubs and organizations, to the support and resources that they need. So one of the things that we say a lot is, give a little bit of space, give a little bit of a runway, give a little bit of latitude, let them fall down a little bit now, not physically, of course, or fail a course or something like that, but let them make some mistakes. Let them have a little bit of ambiguity. That's part of it. Then you can support and lift them up. The other thing that comes up a lot too, and we tell families this, and our office, as well as my colleagues too, we field a lot of calls and emails during the summer, especially around orientation and signups and the residence halls and things, what that looks like too. We're happy. Our offices are happy to always take an email or a call. Again, if it's something that's kind of in your stomach and you say, I've got to reach out to someone, that's fine. We'll work with you. Caroline addressed it earlier that, we have the resources and support in place. We've got tremendously caring people, and we'll work with you. And ultimately, what we'll end up to try to do is have your daughter or son come see us, or to reach out to their RA or to the residence hall director, or go to office hours with a faculty member saying, oh my gosh, they got to see on a midterm. My freshman year, I would have done anything for a C on a midterm, but no, I think, trust us. We want to build that collaborative spirit, but also give them a little bit of that space. But again, we'll never tell you, hey, don't call or don't reach out, or, but in time you'll start to learn that it'll get more comfortable for them. And then the communications will be much more regular and probably more effective.
That's actually a great segue to my next question. Caroline, so every student at some point will face a setback. That's inevitable. That happens. So what are some ways that parents can support their students through those setbacks?
It's a great question. So, I think first is to expect setback and normalize that for students. I think sometimes, if you think about my own kids are little, many of you have heard me talk about my kids at orientation, but like when a toddler bumps themselves and then looks for you to respond and you're like, oh, and then the tears start. But if you're like, oh, yeah, that's a bump, that happens, how can we move forward? You are kind of setting a stage for how serious of an issue this is, right? So I think to hold that like setbacks happen, there's really nothing that can happen that we can't find a way forward through, right? And then helping them problem solve. Like Is this a setback that you can work through on your own? What are the resources that you have at your disposal to help you get through it? If it is really impacting you, how do we access maybe some additional support or resources, or who could those people be? But really, I think the biggest part is honoring that perfection is a myth, that we're human beings who are connected to each other, and that part of being human is mistakes or setbacks, or things don't go perfectly all the time. But I think believing truly that they can get through anything, and that you can help them and help them find the people who will help them do that, I think is the biggest part.
Awesome. One of the things that we hear from students sometimes is a feeling of a setback is when they are trying to find a student organization or a club, and they're struggling to find like their fit, or they don't get into their top choices. Mm-hmm. Ratha, like, how do you help students navigate when those things happen?
Yeah, so I think perspective is everything, right? I want to normalize that students aren't going to get into everything that they want just because we're at a large institution. And what that means is there's just a lot more interest probably in the same things. And so I want to normalize this. And I've talked to parents in multiple occasions of, is this normal? Is this okay that my student applied to these organizations or tried out for these organizations that they're not getting in? So yes, I want to completely normalize that. And that is part of just the BC experience. They will find something that they're interested and passionate in, and they will find their community. I guarantee you that will happen. I think typically what I would do with students who are having a really hard time, there are two resources I want to share. My BC is our student organization platform. That is where all of our events are listed. All our student organizations are listed, so folks can go in and find out more information on their own time without maybe the involvement fear overwhelming you with like flyers or come to my event. But sometimes it's just going to an event to meet the people. And then you become more curious and learning about them, making that connection in person, and then following through and continuing to go to those organizations, and you become part of the community. Other times it might be a little bit more harder because some of our organization names are not like obvious. So come and talk to us, meet with me, meet with my members of the student organization team. We want to learn about your students' passions, their interests, and we want to recommend some options for them and also connect them in real time over email with the e-board leaders. Or sometimes they'll say something that's not even a student organization. We'll call our campus partners to say, hey, do you have space? When's the next meeting? So we want to do that connection with them, for them, but they just have to meet with us. So those are some two options that they can have in terms of navigating. But I do want to normalize not getting into organizations because of space. That is completely part of the experience.
And Ratha, we got a question in the Q&A about, is there a place where parents can find a list of the student organizations online? And is there an Instagram account that they could follow to kind of see some of the organizations in action, or what you guys are doing on campus?
I love this question because I will tell you to go to my office website. So if you go search Boston College Student Involvement, Office of Student Involvement, all of our student organizations are listed on there. You can also go to our Instagram, which is listed on there as well. And the My BC engagement platform that I mentioned, you can also access that without credentials. You might not be able to see all the events, but that's the platform that all of our organization leaders are using and all our undergrads are using to access what's happening today or tomorrow or this weekend. But if you go to our website, bc.edu/ I think it's OSI, Peter can probably add that on there. You can find our information on there.
Awesome. Thank you. So, well, let's move into the themes of community and belonging, which are really kind of very central to the whole BC experience that we have. Chris, can you talk about some moments when students might start feeling that sense of community and developing a stronger sense of belonging on campus?
Absolutely. It's such an important question. And, I would argue, I think it really starts at orientation when they start to meet other people. They meet their orientation leader, but even more importantly, too, they are introduced to a number of different university stakeholders and resources, and they start to realize, wow, I didn't realize that BC had this office, or they didn't or had this service. I think it starts there. But then I think really once they get here, it really goes beyond the weeks of welcome program that we have. When they start mingling a little bit, they go to their first athletic event. I'll name all of our sports, but deeper than that, it's the first conversation that I meet with these two people, and then all of a sudden, yeah, you know what? I haven't seen those people again, but then there's someone else I meet in class, or there's someone else in the residence hall, or I went to the student involvement fair, as Rotha said, and I get that email, and I went to that first meeting with one of the intercultural clubs, or I went to the campus ministry open house on service immersion programs. It starts there, but then I think in terms of the classroom, it really starts when they're challenged to go to office hours. Right before we prepare for the midterm season, talking to a faculty member, getting to know them. We do 3 hours right before classes start with their academic advisors, whether they've declared a major or they're pre-majors or whatever their school is. So they're getting to know whoever she or they are at that point. I think that's an important part for them as well. They start to kind of get a connectedness. And that's something I think all of our offices and it's starting in orientation, but even beyond that, hey, who have you talked to? Caroline does this all the time. Who are you talking to? Did you talk to a faculty member? Did you talk to the TA for the particular course? Did you talk to your RA? In the residence halls, all of our residence hall, Carol and I just came from a meeting, all of our residence hall directors are fully master's degree students. Have you stopped by their office hours, Thursdays, 1 to 4? So you start asking those questions too. So I think there's probably more answers than just those few, but I think it really starts when the work starts to kind of grow a little bit, the papers, the exams, midterms. But then outside of that, when the weekends come, who's hanging out with who, in terms of some of the programs in the residence halls, what's going on outside. Rotha's team puts together emails all across before the weekend saying, hey, listen, there's like 10 different things going on the weekend. So I think the belongingness starts there too. But I would tell you also that at the end of the semester, and when people get a chance to go home for the holiday and Christmas break, and they start to say, you know what, this is starting to make a little bit more sense. All right. I'm hanging out with these two people. I went to this meeting, for the CAB and I applied and got in, I talked to my RA, went to one of these programs. So I think it's a combination of things where that belonging, purposefulness starts. But also important is making a relationship inside the classroom, going to office hours and getting to know your faculty, whether you have a specific question or not.
And Chris, you kind of hit on like winter break and kind of moments when families can kind of recheck in with students. We got a question in the Q&A, and it's about Thanksgiving coming up. And so this is kind of open to anyone. How can parents kind of gauge how their student is doing for these times when they're home, kind of check in on their well-being, like their happiness and how things are going?
I think I'll start it, but I think all three of us get it. I think first and foremost, and this is one of the things that I talked to a lot of first years about, is that they know they're going to get the question about, well, how were midterms? What have you joined? What about what is this? What is living off campus going to look like? Have you talked to people? Have you thought about the spring? I think our best advice would be let them rest. Give them a little bit of a space to kind of be themselves and to kind of decompress a little bit. And I will tell you, in our experience, once you do that, conversations are going to happen. Yeah, by the way, I met this person. We're talking about living together next year, in the room selection. So I think just starting that way is important at Thanksgiving. Just kind of let things settle down a little bit and then see where it goes after that. Let them get some rest, some of the great food at home, and then see where it progresses from there.
That's great. Thank you.
I agree. And I want to go back to like normalizing that not everything is perfect, right? So going home for Thanksgiving next week, they're going to come back and have 1 week of class and then finals, which is a busy and kind of stressful time, right? I like to say I work at a school and it's stressful here for me, but like all my work isn't due in 2 weeks either. And I still feel stressed sometimes with the academic schedule. So I do think, Chris, you have such great advice about allowing them to rest. But I do think, again, normalizing that it's okay if not everything is perfect right now. We can spend break thinking about, and there's a question here about like kind of how can we help our students if they're not happy maybe with their experience. So not like having mental health issues, but like not as happy as they maybe could be. Thanksgiving isn't really the time to problem solve that, but winter break might be. And really thinking about, well, what are you enjoying, right? So what is joyful or fun or like intellectually stimulating or interesting? Are there things that were interesting to you that you didn't do? Are there people who you can say, you know, I know these folks, but I think I want to get to know them more? But I think for Thanksgiving, we're just normalizing, like, yeah, it's a tough time of the semester. We're so excited to have you home. And, you know, what are you loving? What's hard? How are you going to get through finals? Like, how can we support you during finals? What are you looking forward to? Are the kinds of questions I would be thinking about.
That's great. I mean, I remember back being a student and finishing fall semester and thinking, this isn't as fun as it was made out to be, or I'm not as maybe enjoying this experience as much as I thought it would be. And kind of making a pact with myself that in the spring, I'm going to go to as many events as I can. I'm going to put myself out there a little bit more. And it naturally started to happen. You go to things, you start meeting people, and you just start feeling a little bit more comfortable. But yeah, I mean, that's a real transition. It takes a long time to really develop those roots and start feeling, you know, that sense of joy that we hope that all students will have. So Ratha, in terms of community and belonging, you know, how does student involvement opportunities evolve after the first year? So what does it look like for sophomores, juniors, seniors at BC in terms of building community, getting involved in clubs and organizations? And we had a question in the chat that was, if your student does not get into a club or a group during their first year, are there opportunities for them to get into it later? And does that get easier as you get, you know, up sophomore, junior, senior year at BC?
Absolutely. I think everything's easier after the first year because you're done with the transition. You know the campus, you know the academic course loads, you know the routines that work for you and what works best for you. But it's never, I think my biggest advice, it's never too late to try something new. Also, once you like step foot into one opportunity, more opportunities will open up. That's just like the networking. Then you hear about new opportunities. For example, I had a student employee who was a student leader in a bunch of different clubs. She joined a dance organization her senior year and like could not stop talking about it. So all that to say, I would say your class year does not matter in terms of joining an organization or getting involved in a retreat or even applying for opportunities that you think, oh, I missed the boat for that. The wonderful thing about our community is that campus life is really vibrant. And I always encourage every class year, take advantage of it. It's like at your disposal. It's right there. You don't have to travel far for it. And a lot of times it's just finding the available resources and when the deadlines are, when the timelines of things are happening. But my biggest thing is in terms of the transition from leadership, if your student hasn't found anything, they will find something. And it becomes easier because they already have their peer group to support them if they need to talk through things. And they also have a bigger network to work with as they make more friends and find more mentors and go from there.
Awesome. Thank you. And Caroline, so, you know, this sense of like belonging, community, it usually comes from a feeling of feeling like known and supported. How does your team help connect students with resources to fit their individual needs? Because everyone's kind of needs are going to be different based on their situation.
That's a great question. I think in particular, our team often works with students who are having either kind of mental health issues or significant issues that are getting in the way of them connecting with others or being able to do their academic work. And so really a lot of what we're doing is just trying to understand what's going on for someone. Where are the things that are getting in their way? And then really thinking about what are the resources on campus, off campus, the people, the connections that we can help you navigate in order to kind of continue to move forward. And I think to Ratha's point earlier, we are a big university, but we also take our care of students really seriously. And the one-on-one conversations that faculty and staff are happy to have with students, I can't even say how blessed I feel to work here. So when a student is saying to me, you know, I'm having a tough time navigating X, I am often like, you know what, I know a person who would be a great person to help you navigate that. And I will introduce them one-on-one and help make that connection, kind of in the same way that Rotha was talking about how her team can help students think about like a student group or student org or activity and help make that connection with them, especially if they're feeling hesitant to do that. And so I think really asking the questions of what's in the way and then making that connection to what might help.
Yeah, and I think having this, encouraging your student to make the first step to reach out and ask for help. There's resident directors in every residential community. And of course, there's, staff around from OSI to the Dean of Students office. If a student reaches out to me, I'm like, come on in, let's talk. And then I can help reach out to other people from there. And so, but it often starts with the first inquiry from the student. And great. And we can match you, and you're not the only one having this experience, and we'll get you connected accordingly. So in terms of well-being and resilience, there's a lot of excitement and a lot of stress that goes into the college experience. And there's oftentimes when students are navigating moments where what their expectation is of it is really not matching the reality of the situation. Chris, can you talk about how you would help students navigate moments when what they were hoping for, maybe out of a residential experience or student life experience, is just not matching up with, the reality of what the situation is?
It's an excellent question. In fact, there were some questions in the chat thread that really hit on that. I think there's, and again, Peter, I know you're going to walk us through that, but I think just for example, for first years, and I know there's family and parents of all different years on this too, but we just had academic registration, course registration happen. A lot of times, this is a great example that, students, okay, my first or second, they're sitting right here in my conference table, the first or second schedules don't match up. Then what we do is work with them and making sure that, they can email a professor about getting a course override. The system stays open through the different academic deans, Morrissey, Cannell, Lynch, Carroll, that they can drop and add courses, but they just need to kind of gently be reminded about that. They'll get an email, but then we have to remind them. So I think a lot of times it's like, hey, it's okay. You're going to have 5 courses when you come back here in January. Let's work through that. So, it's again, talking to a faculty member, talking to one of the deans. So that's just an example that I just saw in there. But that's one of those examples where it's like, okay, wait a minute, I didn't get these two. I didn't get one of the 2 schedules. It's okay. Let's work with you. Let's see how course seats open. Sometimes courses shift. They open up more seats. They make a change with a faculty member. So that is a realistic expectation and a reality. But I think what happens more often than not is that you come in and you have the mindset of like everything, it's back to the initial question, everything has to be perfect. And Caroline said, there is no such thing as perfection. It's just not. And what we have to do is, I think, help them navigate and kind of temper that expectation to make it a little bit more realistic, saying, hey, listen, it's going to take time. You have to be able to challenge yourself. It's back to that courageous vulnerability to go inside and be able to say, you know what? I'm supposed to be here. This is all going to come together. It's like what we said at Thanksgiving. It's okay to let them rest, but it's okay to ask them, hey, what's been tough? What's been challenging? That's a good conversation. So I think for us, it's the same way. But I think something more importantly is just gently reminding them, saying, you are exactly where you should be. All right. There's going to be natural struggle, which all of us have communicated today. There's going to be a natural struggle to things. All right. But understand that you can bother us. And that's a thing that's real. Oh my gosh. I don't want, Mr. Darcy, I don't want to email. I can't go to Carolyn Davis's office. I can't go over to Carney. I can't go over to student involvement. I can't go to the Dean of Students office. I don't want to bother people. They have to understand, and you all can help us with this. Bother us. We're here. The faculty have office hours. They're there. The residence hall directors have open office hours. They're RAs. Staying in touch with your orientation leaders. We are here, all right? We may not be responding to emails at 10 or 11 or 12 o'clock, but I know Caroline sometimes. I know her email inbox. But no, you know what? We're going to get back to people, and we're going to get back to you as well, too. So I think it's the most important thing I can say to that is just being okay with where you are, being comfortable in that ambiguity. It's okay, because there are people on the journey, as we mentioned before, that are going to be here to help you make a difference and help you succeed.
Thanks for that. And you kind of mentioned, like, so much of this is students kind of advocating for their needs as well. But of course, there's going to be students that do kind of struggle with social anxiety or really have a difficult time putting themselves out there, going to unfamiliar places, doing something even alone, going to an event by themselves if they don't have someone to go to. So Ratha, what advice do you have for parents that may have a student that's kind of feeling in that situation where they're kind of struggling to put themselves out there a little bit?
I think that's a great question, and we actually see that a lot. And it can be overwhelming if you're new to campus and you're like, how many people are going to be at this program? I think the biggest thing to recognize is that for a lot of first year students are going to feel the same way because they're all new to campus. But the biggest thing is really trying to understand what their motivation is. Like if they have a program or an organization they want to join, dig a little bit deeper. And I think maybe try to set some goals for them. Like, hey, why don't you just go to a general body, stay for 10 minutes and see how you feel. You don't have to commit to the whole time. Just because you signed up for something doesn't mean you're committed for life or the 4 years. And I think that kind of like leveling of expectation is sometimes helpful. We also encourage, is your roommate in the same boat? They might be curious about a program. Can you go together? Say, oh, let's stay for 30 minutes and see how we feel. And then if we don't like it, we can leave. There's also a lot of different low sensory activities also within the residence halls. RAs are doing programs. In Upper Campus, we have the O'Connor House. There are literally drop-in programs where you get free food. You can do arts and craft, meet new people. Maybe it's not 10 people, maybe it's one other person that you're sitting next to and you just strike up a conversation. So I think pushing them to be a little bit, that normalizing being uncomfortable is okay, because that's what happens when you live alone for the first time, away from home, away from family. And the more that they can do that little by little, the more comfortable they become with the environment, and being okay with the newness.
Awesome. Thank you. And Caroline, the next question I have is for you, and actually we see it in the chat as well. So I think this is a great way to kind of address a lot of the similar questions we're receiving. So could you talk about how we support students who might be struggling academically, behaviorally, with mental health, or overall well-being? And if that's the case, and if parents have concerns about their student, how can they share those concerns with the university?
Yeah, these are great questions. I want to honor that mental health and conversations about mental health are kind of culturally just changed since we were younger. And so it's in conversation, but sometimes we still don't know, like, well, what should we do now that maybe our students are having these conversations in ways that I'm not used to? And I think part of me just wants to say to lean into the conversation a little bit for you. And just to think about, there's a real question in the chat about, well, what if we don't know what's going on, right? And so I do think for you all to have those conversations, but also to think about, like, who are the other adults that your student may have in their life that they trust, and can you all be on the same page about checking in around mental health? In terms of what we do here at the institution, again, even though we're really big, in a certain sense, we are very connected, and our staff and faculty are very interested in having mentoring and supportive relationships with our students. There's a lot of people that students can go to. I think my role, and part of what we do here in my office, is that when someone on campus is worried about a student for some sort of reason, right? So maybe they aren't going to class, or they're not turning in assignments, or they aren't seeming like themselves, or they're not necessarily kind of engaged in the way that they used to be. I think we ask for staff and faculty to share that with us, so to report that to our office, and then we kind of look through, are there multiple pieces of concern, and respond if there are. Sometimes we know a student knows someone else and they're working with that person already, or it's a purely academic concern and we connect them to the right person in the academic side of the house to kind of work through what's going on academically. So really we're looking for red flags and then working to intervene. It's not a perfect system. Sometimes someone can look like they're doing okay, they're going to class, they're doing their work, and they're struggling. And so part of that is also that we create a culture where we are caring for each other, where we're encouraging students to check in on each other, where we're, encouraging staff and faculty to be thinking about how are students doing beyond just like a metric of evaluation, and then making sure that we're in communication to outreach and meet with students who we might be worried about. We generally would love to hear from parents if you're worried about your students. We don't often call parents, though. So your students are adults, and we work with them to help them access the support that they need. And if it's useful for them or helpful for them to have their parents involved in the conversation, I meet and talk with a lot of parents. But we can receive information from you and kind of help you problem solve and then work with your student. We generally will communicate with parents. If a student doesn't want us to, we will only communicate if we're concerned there's an emergency. So a real health and safety emergency that we think you need to be involved in. Otherwise, we're going to really take the lead of your student and collaborate with you in the ways that kind of meet their needs and help serve them.
Thanks, Caroline. Your audio is a little shaky. I don't know.
I'm going to hop off and hop back on.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. We'll turn over now to talk a little bit about our campus culture in Connection. So, Chris, BC is really well known for our retreat culture. Can you talk a little bit about the purposes of retreats at BC and how they can help students develop connections with their peers, faculty, staff across campus?
No, absolutely. And it's an important question for us for all class years. Because we're a Jesuit Catholic university, I think what happens sometimes that people will look and say, well, I'm coming into BC and maybe I don't have a particular faith tradition, or I might be questioning a faith tradition, or I have a different faith tradition. That's where you should be. That's exactly where you should be. All of our retreats at the university, whether they are faith-based retreats or mission-based retreats, are open to everyone. So that's something I think we try at orientation. Then when school opens, that we try to communicate out there. So I think it's a powerful opportunity for first year students. Certainly I can talk about what we offer here in the Office of First Year Experience, the 48 hours retreat. In fact, we've got one going out in a few hours. We've got 133 first year students going on that. Then after the 48 hours experience, the halftime retreat that is open to sophomores and juniors. Again, it's a mission-based retreat, junior and senior leaders with a mix of faculty involved in that particular retreat. The 48 hours retreat for first years, a very similar setup to what orientation is. Leaders, there's small group work, there are talks, and this kind of gets at some of the questions I think in the chat thread too about that first year at BC. And I think what we're trying to do is kind of give a realistic perspective. I don't want people to think, oh my gosh, this is so negative, but there are so many opportunities here. And what we try to do is introduce students to that and meet them where they are. Campus Ministry does a wonderful job. In the last few years, they have a campus minister for retreats. So a lot of the retreats that they offer, but beyond the Kairos experience, programs such as the APA program, the For Boston program, the Arupe International Immersion program, there's all retreats connected to it as well. There's also a silent retreat that they offer. And so that's a little bit of a kind of a snapshot of the retreat culture. And it's an important one. And again, it's, a lot of times people say, well, I have to do a retreat. No, we want to meet you where you are. So, we want you to explore. We want you to talk to upperclassmen, talk to an RA, talk to an orientation leader, talk to us. So we can help connect you that way. And a lot of people think, I have to do, these 2 retreats or 3 retreats by my sophomore year. No, you don't. You've got 4 years here. So we want to make sure that we honor that, lift that up, and then you take advantage of that. So I think it's a wonderful way for us to be able to show how important our mission and our identity is to our students.
Awesome. Thank you. And I just put in the chat for everyone the email addresses of the panelists so that if you do have follow-up questions or people have to jump off, you can certainly reach out to each of them. If there's something they said that resonated with you, feel free to do that. So next question is for Ratha. Let's talk about some major campus traditions and cultural events. We have Weeks of Welcome, Student Involvement Fair, ALC Showdown. How do those all contribute to a student's sense of community and belonging?
I love this question because it just represents the joy, as Caroline was saying, that we get to bring to the entire student body. So I will take Weeks of Welcome, for example. Our office kind of coordinates the class photo where they're literally lined up in the grids, and then you get that little postcard or the magnet of the class year. A student can literally look back and say, that was me in that shirt in this corner right here. And what that evokes is this sense of community across the student body where we are self-identifying with one program or one event. And there's so much school spirit that is like attached to that. And there's a memory that's attached to that, whether that's to your small groups, the bigger class. It's a really hard feeling to explain, but we see it in students' faces when they say, thank you for coordinating the senior event. I got to say goodbye to my friends at commencement ball. It's just being able to like celebrate the joy and also the reflection of how far they've come along, whether that's the class photo or it's ALC showdown when there's like 20 dance team on a stage in our stadium and everyone is like literally phones out like celebrating. It's an incredible way to celebrate and appreciate the community coming together for a shared cause. So I think school spirit here is pretty strong and campus life here is pretty strong, but it makes us feel connected to each other when we're in that space together.
Awesome. Thank you. And Caroline, hopefully your microphone is better. We'll see. Can you speak about the culture of care at BC, specifically how the university collaborates to respond when students face crisis situations or personal challenges?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I want to go back to and start with kind of our mission as a Jesuit Catholic institution. So I've worked at a lot of schools, and schools say, we care about our students. And I think that's true at all schools. I think for Boston College, it's a core part of who we are as an institution. Many of you have likely heard a phrase, cura personalis, which is caring for the whole student, the whole person. So I think, when asking and thinking about a culture, it is really at the heart of who we are, is that we care about our students in the classroom, for sure, but we care about who they are as people, what they want in their lives, what they bring to our campus, and what they're going to go forth in the world to do to light up the way for other people. Mm. So I think when we face crisis or emergencies or when things are difficult, the biggest thing that we do is work together and collaborate. So, Chris and I work together really closely. Ratha and I work together really closely, right? Our teams know and faculty know across campus that we're there to support each other and to support students as kind of a fuller institution. We've also done a lot of work out of the Dean of Students office around helping students think about what does care mean? So what does it mean for me to be a caring friend? What does that mean when there might be alcohol involved? How can I be a caring friend? What does it mean just when I see someone who might be struggling? So I think really engaging in those conversations proactively with students. So not just saying like waiting for things to be hard, but saying, part of being a BC student and a community member here is that we care for each other. And here are some ways that you can do that. Here are some ways you can ask for help for friends. Here's some ways you can do that for yourself. But then also here are all the resources we have to help you also take care of yourself, right? So academic supports, counseling, health-related supports, mentoring, retreats, all of those things are about caring for a part of your wellness. And I think we do kind of this proactive piece and then the collaborative support piece really well.
Mm. And just to reemphasize, we have a website, bc.edu/report, where students can submit reports if they are concerned about a friend or somebody on campus that they saw. Or parents can even submit reports on there too if they're concerned about their student. So we encourage students to kind of reach out and look out for one another as well as they navigate campus life. So as we are approaching the end of the webinar, I wanted to start talking about some practical resources for parents for next steps and how to look forward. So Chris, can you talk a little bit about, for parents who want to stay informed, what are some of the best ways of learning about campus resources and opportunities for students? And we also got a question in the chat about how can parents even know about what retreats are being offered?
Oh, great. And I just responded to that question as well too, because that's I've been involved with retreats a long time. I really think taking advantage of an opportunity like this is super important. I tell parents at orientation, I don't know a lot about social media. I couldn't tell you the difference between InstaSnap or FaceGram or TikTok or XYZ, whatever it is. But a lot of our websites have active social media platforms. So I think that's another way to take advantage and taking a look at what's happening. But I think also too, Peter, and really to all of you, my colleagues in student affairs, a lot of the work that's gone in over really the last year plus, the new website through the Vice President for Student Affairs Office, which is www.bc/parents. That is not only connected to student affairs, as Caroline said, we all work together. We all actually talk to each other on a daily basis, trust me. But you can click and link on to so many other different departments and resources at the university. And then ultimately take advantage of our emails. If you have questions, reach out to us. I think that's super important. And more importantly, encourage your student to get in touch with a faculty member if they need to, or get in touch with our offices. Maybe our office might not be the direct office they need, but we'll get them to where they need to be. We're not going to bounce a student around and say, oh, let me get back to you. We'll walk a student to an office, we'll share a link, we'll share a resource, we'll share an email. But, I think look at our websites, look at that website on the Student Affairs, Vice President Student Affairs website, social media, and then certainly stay in touch with us as well too. And if it's not us that can help you directly, we will get your student or you where you need to be. Happy to do that.
Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, the parent website, we launched that over the summer. And if you go on there, there's academic, social, spiritual, civic and service engagement, and a number of other things. There's frequently asked questions on there as well. So a lot of the things that might come up, that have come up in the chat, are also things that are addressed on that website. And what we're going to do is we have updates and announcements at the top. So if there are things like this webinar or other events that we can promote that might be something of interest for parents or families, we'll try to do our best to get it up there so that people are aware of what's going on campus. So Ratha, some advice for parents. If they have a student that's expressing that they're having a hard time finding community, what's a good first step for the parent to take in that situation?
I would say encourage them to maybe attend the more local events, first of all. So like residence halls are always doing programs. Their RAs are putting on programs. Residence hall councils are putting on programs. It's in their communities. So again, like low touch point, show up. You don't even have to step outside generally, and connect with your community in the residential component. That's probably the easiest low hanging fruit that they can do. They can also reach out to us and connect with us because we have so much knowledge of what the community has to offer. And sometimes it's that conversation that sparks that connection to a specific thing that they might not even know about. And then finally, we have a program called Community Connectors where they can connect with peers. And a lot of them are first year orientation leaders, and they can connect, have a conversation. And that's generally like that will also peers like coaching through community and finding involvement. So I think there are some avenues there, but those are all low hanging fruits that they can utilize.
So thank you. And Caroline, are there any particular times of the year when parents should anticipate their student might face some more challenges, and how can they prepare to offer support in those moments?
Yep. So finals, I think, can be challenging. And actually, the first 2 weeks of the semester back in January can be challenging. Sometimes there's like a resurgence of homesickness that students are like, what? How did this happen? I thought I felt better. Or some students who maybe were struggling and thought things were going to just immediately be better, and they're not quite. Also, it gets dark at like 5 o'clock, and that can just be hard to manage. And then room selection. So that can be a really stressful time for students. And I encourage you as parents to look through everything that Res Life has to offer. There's a lot of just things available online to help talk students through room selection. There's an info session you can watch and really can help kind of answer some of the questions that Res Life poses there with your student. I do think, my mom, when I called home, it was before cell phones, but when I called home in college and was having a hard time, my mom would ask me these things. She would say, when was the last time you ate? When was the last time you took a shower? And do you need to take a nap? And I do think that sometimes that advice is really solid in the, is this as distressing as it actually is? And can we do some self-care? Can we sleep on it? Can we take a shower and then like make a plan to move forward? But knowing that sometimes things feel so much bigger than they actually are. And so if we can sit through that moment, I'm like, yeah, this is hard, but also truly as parents believe we can get through anything and we will help figure this out no matter what what the answer ends up being. I think really goes a long way. That just like reassurance that we will figure things out is one of the biggest things, and probably a nap and a snack.
And I really appreciate you had also mentioned the room selection process. I feel like we could do a whole other webinar, or maybe we will, on the room selection process, because I think more information that you have, the better you understand it, the less stress hopefully you'll feel as students go through it. And so those are all great offerings of times where students might feel a little bit more on edge during the year. So as we wrap up, I just wanted to offer it out there. Is there any other pieces of advice you'd want to offer to parents to help students as they continue to adjust to college life? Chris, do you have any advice?
I mean, I think we've offered a lot, right now, but I think the biggest thing is really trust your students. We could not be more blessed and privileged to have them in our community. Really, and we mean it, to reach out to us. Don't think twice about that, but also gently nudge them. Hey, have you talked to a faculty member? Have you talked to this first year experience? Have you talked to OSI? Have you talked to the Dean of Students office? Know that we're here. We just don't say that in a webinar. We just don't put our emails out. We do respond. I think we've all said that. And I think the last thing is, again, afford them the patience. Really, it's not all doom and gloom here. I see a lot of first years and they're having an amazing experience, like all of our students, but it takes time, and we're happy to be companions on the journey. So that's my best advice.
Awesome. Thank you. Anything else to offer? We good?
I think just one last thing. I think that the biggest thing is empower your student to be their own agents, right? Like, I think this is such a great community to learn, to fail, to learn to succeed, to learn to grow. And we are kind of the buffers before they go into the real world. And it's such an amazing, I think Caroline has said this so many times, but we are here to catch them. And I love that about our community. And so the more we can empower them, that normalizing like failure, or normalizing like it's not always going to be the road up, I think that's a good thing, because that's how growth happens. That's how formation happens. So we're really excited, and we love working with our students, but I just want to remind, let's empower them to be their own agents and kind of navigate through this journey, and obviously catch them and like be a listening ear, but kind of nudge them a little bit to get outside of that comfort zone.
Yeah, it's really amazing in my experience of working here to see students when they come in as freshmen, and then as they leave as seniors, the total transformation that happens over those 4 years. And sometimes it's really slow, and you don't see them immediately. And then you look back and go, whoa, significant growth, amazing. And so it's quite the journey, but it's really exciting time in everyone's lives. I want to say thank you to our panelists. I really appreciate your time being here. We put your emails out. So hopefully if you have the time and capacity to respond, if additional questions do come in. Thank you to all the parents and families that joined us today. We are recording this, and so what we hope to do is get this on the parent website or out in an email sometime after Thanksgiving. So thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it, and have a great day and a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Bye.